I read this on the internet this morning, and it really touched me because it's something that through before. I have studied history. Where'd it go? There we are. Especially American history. But anyway, back in the war, and it was the War of 1812 or the Revolutionary War, they wanted to exchange between the British and the Americans the POWs that each held. The American POWs were being held in ships 1,000 yards offshore. They were held in the cargo hold, chained, no fresh air, just like the slaves back when. Now, they sent an emissary from the United States over to the British ships. They sent a lawyer by the name of Francis Scott Key. So he goes over, he negotiates a release of the prisoners of war, one for one, to be transferred back to where they belong. So Francis Scott Key was so excited that he had brokered this negotiation. He ran down in the hold into the stench that all the men were living in, and he told them, "Men, you're going to be free tonight." And as he told them that, he goes back up to the top, and the British admiral walks over and says, "I have some bad news. We are going to honor our commitment for the one-by-one repatriation. But by morning, it's going to be a moot point, because we are going to take the full force of the British Navy out on this fort and that idiotic American flag you folks hold so dear." So, Francis Scott Key runs down to the hold. He tells the men what's going to happen. He runs back up. The admiral says, "Look out on the horizon and tell me what you see." He said he saw hundreds of ships on the horizon. And the admiral says, "They're going to be here in 2.5 hours. And when they come, they're going to turn broadside to that fort, and they're going to knock that fort flat." And Francis Scott Key says, "Wait a minute, Admiral. That's not a total military post. There's women and children in there." And the British Admiral says, "We've got that covered. We told them when you've had enough, lower the flag, and we will stop all bombardment immediately." So Francis Scott Key runs down, tells the boys in the hold what's going to happen, and by golly, at twilight, they opened fire, and Francis Scott Key said it was deafening. You couldn't even hear yourself think. This went on for 3 hours. And every time their bombs, which when they burst were red in color, he could still see the American flag flying above the fort. And the boys down below in the hold, all they wanted to know is the flag still up? And he says, yes, boys, it is. So they brought the ships in closer, and he says, the British Admiral says, you're going to see that flag come down now. So they unleashed another barrage, and Francis Scott Key said that he saw the rounds going through the flag, and at twilight the next morning, after all the gunpowder and the haze had cleared, he looked up and the flag was still flying, although he said at a very crooked angle. So he gets in his rowboat, he goes to shore, and he gets out, he runs into the fort to find out how bad the shelling has become, and he looked up and he saw the American flag in tatters.
What is he done?
But what had happened during the night was every time the British knocked that flag off of that standard, a patriot would shimmy up the pole by himself with the flag and hold it there till he was killed. And then when he fell, another patriot would grab that flag and run it up the pole. And when Francis Scott Key got there that morning, he said that wicked angle of the flag was being held up by the dead American patriots who had kept that flag flying all night. God bless everybody. That's a true story.